Welcome back, everybody. Let's give a warm welcome to our next speaker, Inga Popovaite, and she's a PhD student at the University of Iowa, and she's going to talk about mixed gender crews in isolated environments like deep space travel. So thank you very much.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. As you can see, I changed my presentation name to a bit more reader-friendly. So what I'm going to talk today is about women and women in space and women in isolated environments. And this is just like some statistics to get us started. So first of all, space programs were really, really slow to include women. Our first female astronaut or cosmonaut, Valentina Tereshkova, went to space in 1968, and then it took another 20 years for a second one to go up, and then another year for the first American to go up. Currently, only 11% of all astronauts, cosmonauts, and every space traveler are women, so about 60 out of 560 people. But when we look among them, there's also some difference between male and female astronauts. For example, women are way more educated than men. Among women astronauts, there are more PhD holders than among men astronauts. On the other hand, men have more military background. Also, there are way less parents among women astronauts than among men astronauts. I'm not going to go into more details on this kind of trivia, but there are specific reasons why, for this. So just some statistics, and just basically from the first glance, we do see that there are gender differences in space. And as a sociologist, I'm really interested in that. Some people might say, like, so why sociology? There are like 3 people in space at the moment. Like, who cares? It's not a society, right? But I think that sociological approach is necessary when we think about human factor research, because we, contrary to psychologists who look mostly at personality level factors, how people interact with each other, we address inequalities that originate in society. Because none of us, none of the astronauts, none of the people who work in Antarctica on those long, long winter nights, none of them come as a clean slate, right? We come with stuff from our societies. We come with stereotypes. We come with specific cultural expectations, how people should be and how they should act and what they should do. And as sociologists, we study inequalities, right? I'm not going to give you an intro to sociology course. I will leave that to my undergrads next week. But basically, we study inequalities and we look for structural causes for that. And when it comes to small groups, as I said, all the social norms and beliefs and stereotypes are being imported from wider society. And what happens, we have differential treatment of group members, meaning that some people are listen to more, some people listen less, some people are bluntly discriminated against. And what it leads to why we care beyond academic circles is that, A, it threats mental being of group members. Imagine if you're always like at the bottom of the pecking order for years that you are on a space mission, right? Or months, or even days. That wouldn't be pleasant, right? Also, then we are not harnessing full capabilities of all the crew members, right? Because we think that some people can just do things better, and we let them do things, right? And I can go on and on. We have potential for conflict. There's lack of group cohesion. There will be basically we will not have a functioning team if we do not address inequalities that come from bigger societies. So, and especially in space environments, right? Because we have extra danger, we have additional layers of isolations, like not only physical but also social, right? We are away from families, away from friends, from loved ones, and we're stuck with people that we might not like. And we're stuck in small spaces with very limited supplies. So that's why we need to know how to deal with things. So what we know so far from research on isolated confined extreme environments, or ICE, when it comes to gender, it's really a boys' club. there's way more men working in Antarctica, or as I showed you already in space programs. And also when it comes to gender, women and men have different stressors and different ways of dealing with them. I'm not going to go into details, but just believe me, there are gender differences. Also, they are expected to behave differently in a team. Women are more than men, they are expected to be peacemakers among competing males or men. Also, women and men, they believe to have different leadership styles. Women are believed to have more communal leadership styles, like kind of love everyone. We work together as a team. Men are believed to have way more authoritarian or more individualistic approach towards leadership. And again, and I'll come back more to status in a team. So in a lot of teams, like, well, men will be here and women will be way lower in the pecking order. So as I said, the reasons why all of these things happen from research we know, psychologists and anthropologists so far give us personality and crew-specific explanations. And I'm showing what's missing, saying, well, actually, maybe something also, in addition to personality, in addition to crew specifics, there's something else that comes from the society. And this is where I want to come in and just show you what's happening. Okay, sorry, now some theory for you guys. So status characteristics theory, it's really in a nutshell what we argue here, that in task and collectively oriented groups, meaning that when people work together, we have both formal and informal status hierarchies. Like, so formal will be based on your role in the team. Like, if you're designated leader formally, you're up in the hierarchy. However, we have informal status hierarchy too, which is based on observable differences and stereotypes that come with those differences. Because every time we see a person, like, our first hinge is like, aha, he's a man, he'll be really good with math and computers, he'll fix my computer. And if we have women working in our team, maybe, well, they'll be better with people, maybe they'll know an extra language or two. So we do have that. So these these stereotypes, they lead then to informal status hierarchy. And gender in mixed gender groups is like one of those visual differences that I'm talking about. So what happens when we think that someone has higher abilities just based how they look or who they are, it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, because then we allow them to do more things. And then that's how informal status hierarchy forms. And why I'm interested in it, it's not only that we can look group dynamics and it's cool and it's academic, but also, as I said, mental health outcomes. If you're always on the lower stratum of status in your group, you'll have way more negative emotions, and in turn it extra stressors, and it's just not nice, right? So what I today, just kind of an example how we can study it, because it's all nice and good in theory, but actually how will we study it? So I'm looking into MDRS as a case study. So crews and simulations, there are my task groups from theory, right? They have a specific task to achieve. EVAs, this is an observable behavior that leads to our simulation goals. You have specific tasks that you want to achieve, and you perform EVAs to do that. However, as EVAs can be perceived as more masculine tasks because it's more scientific, it's exploration and danger, and it's all of that. In our culture, it connects to masculinity, the frontier, the final frontier, explorers. So that's one more masculine image of a task. So what I propose that then, so high status individuals will be more instrumental in simulation. Again, that comes from the theory. And in this specific case, so then these individuals will be those that went on more EVAs, meaning that they are more central to the mission. When I talk about centrality, I mean that they worked with more people and they went on to EVAs with more times, kind of. And I use social network analysis approach to kind of calculate centrality, and I show you some graphs how it looks like. And my hypothesis is that men will have higher in-group status when we control or account for their official role in the crew, because, as I said before, there's always formal and informal hierarchy, and we cannot dismiss formal hierarchy, because that would be false. Okay. So for my pilot study, I read a lot on the website. I selected 30 random crews, and I read their biographies, and I took gender and the role in a crew from each biography. And then I went through the EVA logs and just looked like who went with whom, basically. And this is how my data looks like. So what we're looking here at is crew numbers are really artificial. They're very randomized, so actually I can't tell which crew was that. So in this crew, like each person is a node. The tie between them, like this one, means how many times they work together. So these guys work together 8 times, right? So what I'm interested in, so yeah, and in this crew, the most central person is the male scientist. Yeah. So, yeah. Any questions about this? So the ties are how many people work together on an EVA, right? And then every node is a crew member. And how I calculate degree centrality is, for example, if I went on with EVA with 2 other people, I get 2 ties because I work with 2 people. So that comes into calculation, and also how many times I went into EVA. So basically, central people are the ones who the most EVAs and with the most people. Yeah, and that's this guy. And here is just a distribution of how many EVAs did all of these people do. Okay. So all these pictures are nice and, good to show and pretty. I like networks. But what is more interesting, so what? Network, every crew might be different. But what I did, then I ran a couple of statistical models. Basically, I was taking into account the role and the gender, and this is the results. So this is the probability from 0 to 1 of being the most central person in a crew. This is males. These are for females. So these are confidence intervals because the sample is so small. But from this small sample, what I got, it was statistically significant, and males were 2.85 times more likely than females to be the most central person in a crew controlling for the role. And when you use gender and role, you can predict who is the most central person in each crew based on network centrality with over 82% accuracy. So it's pretty accurate. You can know someone's gender or someone's role and get you most likely will be most central person. So, yeah.
In your data set,
mm-hmm.
What was the percentage of female?
Okay, so female to male ratio was about 30-something% females, and all the others, it was 30 to 60, something like that. So, yes, so we have that imbalance too. So obviously there's some limitation to this. So I cannot, just reading through logs, I don't know who made those decisions to go on EVAs. Was it one personal choice? Did they make it a choice as a team? And who had the most influence when they were doing that? Also, participation in EVA is just a proxy for hierarchy because there are all the other tasks that people have to do. For example, who cooks? Who does the dishes? Is that because that's usually seen as more feminine role? So, our women are also kind of seen as home cleaners there too? And again, as I said, I have really small sample size, so that's kind of limiting there. And
so on the graph, it showed that the 2
mm-hmm.
women in the crew
mm-hmm.
were, they were on 10 EVAs
mm-hmm.
each.
Mm-hmm.
But are you saying that it's just the idea is that a male is more likely to be chosen as the commander?
No, it means that they were on so the male was on 35 EVAs, on 11 EVAs, so he was just,
right.
Yeah, so that's why he's central here. Yeah.
No, males are not preferentially chosen as commanders.
I was checking actually also with data kind of cross. Yeah, I wanted also to see whether males are more often to be commanders, but it's not. There's no correlation with gender and who is a commander. Yeah.
What was the sample size?
So I said it was like 30 crews of 6 people each, so it's like 180. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I do the cooking in my place if it makes any difference to me.
No, of course. So, and this is what I want to do in the future. So, if I continue with the same MDRS data that's online, I would definitely increase sample size, right? Because I want to add other, as we call, control variables, meaning that I also want to account for their education levels, whether it's the first simulation or not, whether they have expertise in some space industry, military background, any of those things that will absolutely also influence whether they are more central in a crew or not. And after that, I want to look into other characteristics that define us, because we're not our genders only, right? We also, like, nationality is a big thing. We're looking into international crews, like working together, and you have culture, and you have all these national stereotypes that come with it, and race and ethnicity always divides us. Religiosity, we've been talking a lot in this convention about religion on Mars, right? And different religions, sexuality, social class, and all these other dividing parts that makes us unique, but also can prevent us like working together properly. So that was it. So here's my contacts. Yeah.
Could you go back to the slide with the rows on it?
With the rows, okay.
The EPA crews.
Oh, okay.
The EPA crews.
This one?
All right. Yes, I have worked with Yvonne Clearwater years ago. And I can see that the science officer is hitting on 2 chicks. Yes? No? No, tell me that's not true.
No, it's also, yes, this was fascinating because I've been looking for different crews, how it works. Yeah, you would see if you have like let's say a crew is like 50-50 males, females, like 3 and 3, you would kind of see in the graphs that like there's like coalition of women that kind of work more together, and in those cases women become more central because they work more together and they kind of push each other up, which is also fascinating.
Yeah, well, those 2 chicks are talking to each other.
Oh they work together 8 times. Yeah.
It's fascinating when it goes wrong and they hate each other.
What?
It can be fascinating when it goes wrong and they hate each other because they're just so different. I work with a lot of women in groups.
Yeah.
I agree with what you said, but occasionally it doesn't work.
So it sounds like this is the way that you view this. It's not so much something that's institutionalized in this industry or in this field, but it's a reflection of our society and our culture. So with that in mind, is there something that you see we can do differently to promote equality at this level from a cultural standpoint?
So just to answer your question, it's both the industry, because it's still very masculine, and again, it's like if you look into proportions, men and women working for space industry, well, you see like that's the amount of women and that's men, right? And yes, and it's also the culture, which they two are very, very closely connected. How to address inequalities? Well, they're like, I mean, the most, I can say training or, or something like that, but that would be too optimistic, because from my experience, I know it doesn't matter how many diversity or trainings you make people sit, they will after a week or 2, they'll go back to their own ways. So I don't know, I really don't know, and that's why I want to study this more to actually know what's happening, because if we don't know the structural causes, then what exactly causes things, then we don't know how to fix it. Yeah.
I was just wondering if other times that you give this talk, do you find there's any repetition of people interrupting you to ask questions during the presentation when that doesn't consistently happen with other presenter folks?
Yes, I can go to gender theory and tell you, yes, female presenters are way more likely to be interrupted when they talk. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for a very, very interesting talk. At the moment, I'm reading a very interesting book by somebody called Mary Robinette Kowal, which is called the Lady Astronaut series. And it's in many ways, it's a fictional account of what you are talking about. Basically, this series is placed in an alternative timeline where people are actually settling Mars, following the von Braun plan in the 1960s with female astronauts. And the whole complex you are describing here is very well described in the book. So I can highly recommend it. It's very
Oh, absolutely. I'll look into that.
And it's being written right now. It's a new series. It's out on Amazon, yeah. So just go to Amazon and write Lady Astronaut. And you'll find some really good books which cover what you are talking about very, very well.
Thank you.
With gender, with race, the whole thing.
I was kind of going somewhere where we've been implying building conflict between pairs of people. It was the Russians who, a pair of them on the early space station, going to me, stopped talking to each other for months. They just hated each other, that close to each other, and nothing, no command would make them behave. That's unusual. Most men in groups will have a big fight, go out and have a drink and make up afterwards.
But maybe you don't have that much vodka up there.
Yeah. My experience of women in groups is that it's much rarer for a pair of women as the sole women to fall out. When they do, it seems to be just unable to be fixed. It becomes incredibly toxic.
I'm not a conflict psychologist. I can't really... No, absolutely. But then again, this research is being done. When it comes to personality levels, I don't think that there's much structural about why women don't talk to each other. It might be more cultural, though, and what is expected of a woman when they're in fights. Because it's not really expected of us girls that when we're in fight that we would just like go get drunk and be friends again. Because we're not supposed to drink, period. Again, it's cultural, yeah?
Do you think that like a restructuring of formal hierarchies work to counterbalance the informal hierarchies that naturally form people's like inherent biases, or do you think that those will always run?
So the research not in space environments, but we do a lot of research in this area about formal and informal hierarchies. It does work if you designate a female or a woman or a person, and you tell everyone, well, they will be a leader of this group because they have these specific abilities that you might not pick up beforehand. It works. Then the group hierarchy kind of equalizes, and you don't have so many informal leaders emerging. So yes, it can be done. Yeah.
You might have said this, and I might have missed it. How many crews did you study?
30.
How many?
30.
30.
Yeah, randomly selected, yeah.
I'm gender non-binary. I was wondering, possibly not in this situation because the sample size is so small, but
yeah.
Do transgender people, gender non-conforming people kind of...
Yeah, so this is one big limitation of the study because I had to infer people's genders from their pictures, so I don't know how they identify themselves. But yeah, that's like one of bigger limitations that I forgot to put on here. yeah.
Do you see male crew leaders that have been selected as the commanders? Does that affect their perceived centrality score higher than women? Because it definitely appears that the XO has done much more work, near double, as far as EVAs and her centrality score. However, the commander is still seen as higher, even though he's 50%.
Yeah. So, actually, no. The only role that had any statistical significance to be more central were engineers. No one else. That's other ones were like, again, small sample size. So I can't really pick up on a lot of significance, but yeah. Yes.
You're also dealing with different command structures in that my speculation on this crew, I'm the director of the station. My speculation on this crew, I don't know who they are, is that the commander had that typical the commander doesn't go on EAs. And so we have, sometimes when we have a commander in exo situation, the commander will just, or actually, no, I was going to say if it's a female, it could be me because I like to send them out. But, so there are a lot of very informal reasons why, and you only have one cruise data here.
Yeah, I can show you some other ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I agree with that. Again, using secondary data, that's one big limitation because as I said, I don't know who makes these decisions. Yeah. Well, thank you all for questions.